Doug Weiss. Douglas Weiss. Doug, listen. Now, I got to be honest. I was not planning on doing a podcast. I was not even planning, Doug, to do a podcast, or at least do a podcast directed to you. I know all the stuff that's going on at Daystar. You're a hot topic. But I wasn't going to touch it, Doug, because you were probably just too hot for me to touch, too much for me to deal with. But then something happened. I saw you on TV yesterday, Doug. I saw you on TV yesterday, man, and my heart went out to you. And I know that's shocking you, and I know that's probably shocking a lot of people who are in the Daystar circle and vibe of everybody that's talking to you and about you all over the net. But my heart went out to you, Doug. And you're probably asking, and maybe if I have any listeners are asking, why is my heart going out to you, Doug? You know why? Because Doug, you're a child of God. And you know what? In spite of where you are right now, in spite of what you're doing, in spite of just who you are, God's heart still goes out to Doug Weiss. And because God's heart is going to go out to you, Doug, mine has to too. I've got to love you, Doug. Whether I'm upset with you or not, I've got no choice. And so I was looking at you the other day, man, and I got to say this, that nobody's telling you this. I don't think anybody's going to tell you this around you, Doug. But brother to brother, you look horrible. You look horrible, Doug. And when you first go back and take a look at the tape from when you did your coming out on Table Talk, you ran out to the table. You were so energetic. Your voice had strength. Your voice had confidence. You looked like a strong man. You were built nice and tight. And you had a smile on your face, and you exuberated, even though it was a form of, you exuberated a passion for life and a passion for people. But when I saw you the other day, I got to be honest, I said, is this really Doug? Over a short period of time, what's happened to you? Your voice is all weak. You look tired. There was no energy in your voice. There was no passion in what you were saying. Doug, the way you were talking, and I even will speculate, and I'm saying it's only speculation on my part. It is not factual based. But the way that you were talking so slow, not even fully vocalizing what you were saying, one could speculate you could have even been drinking or doing something, yet you didn't sound good, Doug. You didn't sound healthy. And you know what? You don't look healthy. If you take a look at those two tapes, it's clear that you put on some weight. Now, look at me. I'm not one to talk about putting on weight. But the only reason why I'm saying that I think you put on weight is because you made such a big deal about your working out in the gym, telling Joni, who told Laura Lynn, this guy can't even go home because he don't want to go home, so he's hanging out at the gym. And back in those days, you were nice and tight. And then you're telling Jonathan about the butterflies, and you're saying, what happens is a guy, he loses his discipline. He stops working out at the gym, but a lover never loses a discipline for loving. You lost your discipline, Doug, because you done blowed up. Now, I'm not saying all of this to get you worked up, and I'm not saying all this to be insulting. I'm saying this to say to you that you've got to look in the mirror, my friend, and you've got to say to yourself, something is off. Something's not right. You're not the same Doug that was coming out on Table Talk versus just a little while after that. Look at you today. Look how lethargic you are. And what is that, Doug? You know why you look messed up, man? I'm going to tell you why, because I've suffered from this too. It's called sin. That's why you look messed up, truthfully. And I know the body of Christ doesn't want to correlate sin and illness or sin and mental stress but it is biblical. And when I was looking at you yesterday, David came to mind. King David came to mind. King David, a man after God's own heart, a man who loved God and pursued God but made some mistakes. And all of a sudden, we know the story. This guy slept with Bathsheba, took something that wasn't his, didn't belong to him. And then Nathan, the prophet, comes to him. And Nathan basically says, hey, you stole somebody's stuff. You are that man. And out of that admission from David, I have sinned, comes Psalm 51. And let me tell you why, Doug. Let me tell you why I really believe that you look messed up now, okay? Just this verse here that I found in Psalm 51 really attributes to me that I really want you to take a look in the mirror, Doug. I want you to look at yourself, and I want you to really see just what's happened to you. Now, look at this. This is Psalm 51. We all know it. This psalm was birthed out of David's admission with Bathsheba. But listen to this, Doug. He says this, okay? Verse 3, for I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. You know why you look messed up, Doug? It's because you can't escape it. It's not behind you. What has happened, all of this destruction that's come your way, it's not behind you, Doug. It's in front of you. It's in your face. Even when you're looking in a camera, even when you're looking at Joni, it's in your face. All of the destruction. Lisa's in your face. Your children are in your face. Your business is in your face. It is failing. It's in your face. And this podcast is about trying to understand what has gotten you to this point, trying to understand Doug's point of view, trying to get a glimpse, Doug, of just who you are and what got you to the person that we all know on the internet today. Because if I can reach that person, I believe that person or any person, if we can come to reason together and get them to look at themselves, as Paul said, in a mirror, then that person seeing the horror, or what Paul called the wretchedness of self, can course correct, can be the better moral person, can be the better spiritual person, can get back to Christ. And so, Doug, that's why you're all messed up and it's wearing on you. The sin and the weight of what has happened and what you've done is wearing on you. And you know what? You can look at Joni and guys can get on TV and try to put this front on. But Doug, deep down, when you guys are in the bed, when you guys are in the room together at night, when you guys are in the car, deep down, you both know you guys are going through hell right now. Yes. People are going to say, yes, they've earned it. Yes, they've done it. Not why I'm here. You're going through hell right now, Doug. You're going through it. And let me tell you why I know that it has something to do with how you look and the weight that's all on you. Okay? So listen to this, Doug. This is Psalm 32, and it's by David, okay? And it's verse 3 and 4. It says, when I kept silent, meaning when I didn't admit what I did, when I didn't face my own horror, when I didn't look at the sin that was in front of me, when I put on my own blinders, it says, my bones wasted away through groaning all day long. For day and night your hand was heavy on me. My strength was changed into the drought of summer. Think about it. Doug, think about that. You are in pain, pal. Whether you want to admit it to me or you want to say something about it, the thumbprint of God is pressing on your heart. I know what that's like when you don't want to admit what you've done wrong, when you don't want to look at the sin in front of you, when you don't want to look at your own wretchedness. It's the thumbprint of God that is messing with you, and you can't sleep. Look at your eyes, of bags, and listen, I'm not talking about this to make fun or to say something wrong. I'm trying to get you to take a look at yourself, see the wretchedness that you have now become because of the sin that you've committed, and try to course correct as David did. And look at this, Doug. This is something else that I got for you here. It's Psalm 38. Look at this here. O Lord, do not rebuke me in your wrath, nor chasten me in your hot displeasure. For your arrows pierce me, and your hand presses down on me. There is no soundness in my flesh because of your indignation, nor is there health in my bones. Why, Doug? Because of my sin. For my iniquities have passed over my head as a heavy burden. They are too heavy for me. Doug, how are you? Listen, I can't even imagine what you're going through, man. You have built a successful business. You're a 20,000 square feet building, heart to heart, people coming all over the world. And look what's happened. Your reputation has been trashed. Your company has been trashed. Your integrity has been trashed. Even your skill as a counselor, as a marriage counselor, has been trashed. Doug, these are burdens that you're carrying right now. There's some probably financial burdens that you're carrying right now. You're probably counting on the business growing after you married Joni, but now you're in the tank. You still owe Lisa probably, allegedly, I don't know, for the divorce. So you're probably worrying about finances right now. You're worrying about the people that work at Heart to Heart. What about those people? What these people could lose their job all because of what you've done. That's a burden on you, Doug. The lives that are being affected, that's on you. You've got to hold that, man. So think about this, what David is saying. He keeps on saying here, he says, my wounds grow foul and fester because of my foolishness. I am bent. I am bowed down greatly. I go mourning all day long. My sides are filled with burning, and there is no soundness. There's no confidence. There's nothing in my flesh. I am numb and completely crushed. I have roared because of the groaning in my heart. Look at it, Doug. This is you. This is you. This is who you are right now. The pain of David. The realization when he is now fighting his flesh, it's sin eating you up inside out. Before somebody looks at you on the outside and says you're messed up, you've already been messed up inside, internally, medically, spiritually, emotionally. This is how you look on Daystar. Personally, I think you need to get off of Daystar because you're not projecting this image. It's the Joni and Doug show doesn't look good right now. You're not captivating anymore, Doug. You're not looking like you know what you're talking about. You're looking like you're dragging through another show. That's what I'm seeing in a man that is hurting, a man that is going through hell because you made a choice. You walked the long aisle and now you've got to pay the man, and the man is the consequences of what has happened. Let's go on here. Lord, all my desire is before you, and my sighing is not hidden from you. My heart throbs, my strength fails. As for the light of my eyes, it is also is gone from me. There's nothing there. When I look at your eyes, when I looked at your eyes the other day, Doug, there was nothing there. There was no light. There was no power. There was no passion. It's just a guy sitting in front of a screen saying, when is this going to be over so I can get back to my drink? When is this going to be over so I can pop my pills? And this is all alleged. I'm not saying you do that. When is this going to be over so I can just go back to sleep and hide my head under my bed and under my pillow until this all ends? But it won't end because your sin is right in front of you. You can't escape it, Doug. And listen to this. David says, my friends and my companions stand back because of my affliction, and those close to me stand at a distance. You got no friends. Jimmy Evans? Really? Is he your friend? What about the people, Doug, that you used to work with? What about the people that you used to golf with? What about all these people that you talk to climbing up this ladder? Nobody wants to deal with Doug Weiss anymore because people are calling you names, liars, adulterers, cheaters. People are calling you all this stuff, and nobody wants to deal with you. The only people that want to deal with you and Joni right now are the ones that has contracts with Daystar and the ones that want to ingratiate themselves to Joni for airtime. That's it. You don't have anybody speaking into your life, and that's a hurting feeling. When you don't have somebody that is going to say, man, I'm going to help you, show you the way to get out of this, it's bad, Doug. It's bad. And so that's what you're going through. And look at this. Look at this. Here's the last part I want to read about this. Verse 17, it says, for I am ready to stumble, and my pain is continually before me. Here it is. Here it is, Doug. This is the part. For I will declare my iniquity. I am anxious because of my sin. You think about that. You're going to tell me there's not a correlation between the anxiety that's all over your face and the sin that's in front of you? You don't think that there's a correlation because of what you've done and the fact that I bet you can't sleep at night? And I'm not saying this in the wrong way, and excuse my vernacular here, but I bet your penis is not as blessed with all this anxiety that you got on you right now because, Doug, you are carrying a load. You're carrying a load. And this is not how you planned it. This is not how you wanted it. This is not how you wanted it to be. But here you are. This is the plight. This is the situation that you found yourself in. And why? That's the point of my podcast from a certain point of view. I want to understand, Doug, now that I know where you are. I know you're here. You are that man. Now I need to know, how did this man get here? How did Doug Weiss become this monster that everybody's calling him? How did Doug Weiss become this adulterer that everybody's calling him? How did Doug Weiss become this abandoner, his slanderer that called his wife an abuser? It all started way back when, Doug, before you ever met Joni. I would surmise that you were a guy that always wanted to be the smartest person in the room. You always felt that you didn't fit in. You always felt that you weren't on the team. You always felt that you weren't in the club. And you said to yourself, you're going to be in that club. You said to yourself, you're going to be better than anybody else. And you went to school and you got your degree. Yeah, I heard there was some problems at the Bible school, but nevertheless, you got out of the Bible school. You started your degree. You started a business for yourself. And you made that business work. And so now the Doug that was ignored becomes Doug the player. And then you get married to a beautiful, sexy, green-eyed girl that you fell in love with, Doug, had children with, couldn't take your eyes off of her, and said every day, honey, I'm coming home tonight. And you built a business on that love, that union between you and Lisa, heart to heart, marriage, couples, I want to help you. But and then you built that whole theme around sex. You built the whole thing around sex and broken marriages and sexual addictions and sexual dysfunction and all the things that you built. You knew that it was a seller. Whether you're a Christian or not, people have sexual problems. People got problems with their penises. Wives have problems. Husbands have problems. And you built your bones. You made your bones based on that sin. Not to say helping people and what you were doing at first was wrong, but that was your market. Your market was sinners. People that made mistakes and cheated and had sexual dysfunctions and sexual addictions. This is how you made your bones. But it still wasn't enough, was it, Doug? Because even though now you were a player, you still wasn't in the game fully. You weren't one of the big guys. And then you started hanging out with that word if. If only I had more people, probably. If only I had a bigger building, probably. If only I marketed myself more. If only I was on media, national media, the whole country could see me. If I was on worldwide media, if I was on a satellite program, the whole world could see me. And your eyes probably lit up and you didn't know how to do it. But you wanted more, because that would put you in the game with the real players. That would give you the power and the position that you always craved, that you always wanted. And then what happened? The devil drops Marcus Lamb and Joni Lamb in your lap. Guy's cheating on his wife. There he goes. There he goes. He's right. He's a customer. We got a hot one. We got a rich one. We got a famous one. He's got media. He's got everything I could want, and he needs me. And so they came down and they did an intensive. Now, I heard some stuff on Laura Lynn, okay, about some people writing in saying that they paid you for an hour and you gave them 40 minutes. I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts that you gave Marcus an hour and 20 minutes for an hour. You gave Marcus all of your time, personal time. You handled those lambs yourself, probably, because you knew this was the big fish. If you could reel this big fish in, who knows where it would go from here? And that was the point. And so you got him down there and you learned all you could. Every sordid detail, every problem that this couple had, you knew about it. You wrote it down somewhere. You took notes. Every insecurity that Joni Lamb had, you wrote it down. You took notes. Everything that Marcus did wrong or wasn't giving her enough of, you wrote it down. You took notes, as is your job, because you live by that information. That information is power. They're sharing, they're opening up. That's a card one day that you could play, right? That's how it works. And I bet you, Doug, I bet you right now, back then you probably was thanking God for Marcus Lamb and Joni's affair, because they plopped it right in your lap, and that was the break that you were wanting. That was the break that you always needed. And you probably thought it was God. But let me ask you a question. Can you just logically ask yourself, where would you be right now if you'd never counseled that couple? Where would you be right now if you never would have met Marcus Lamb, if you never would have met Joni Lamb, if you never would have involved yourself in their marital problems, if you never would have fed off of that after he died? You still be with your green-eyed beauty. You still have a successful business. You'll still be liked in the community of counseling. People would still respect you, and nobody would know, because none of this stuff happened. None of these old customers or bad customers said that you ruined their marriage. These people only came out as a result of Joni and Marcus meeting you. And if they never would have met you, Doug, look at Joni right now. Turn to your left. If you never would have met Joni and Marcus, you wouldn't be here today. Maybe with somebody else, you would have found another way, because sin and envy and covetousness always finds another way. Where there's envy, there's every evil work. So you had the big fish and you reeled them in. And after that, just think what happened. Marcus got you on TV. You're talking about your wife. You're talking about how great she is and how she's got a spirit of excellence and how she's just wonderful. She made the 20,000 square feet building a home, how she treats everybody. And I'm willing to surmise, I could only surmise this, that time when I saw that little clip while Joni was sitting there and looking at you describe that green-eyed beauty, maybe she was saying to herself, I wish Marcus was treating me that way. I wish Marcus was doing that to me. And you know what? Maybe you were saying all that stuff because you knew that was what Joni wanted to hear, because that's the file. That's the file that you got. You know what she likes. You know what sweet nothings or words of affirmation that she needed. Right? And so Marcus says, oh, that sounds like my Joni. She says, oh, she probably said to herself, just shut up, Marcus. I want to hear from Doug. And maybe she was a little envious at the time of Lisa, having a husband that would sit there and say all these beautiful things about her. Her green eyes, her beauty, how he can't wait to come home. Could you imagine how she felt hearing that you couldn't wait to come home to that green-eyed beauty when Marcus was home and with somebody else for 7 years? So you got it. You had everything you wanted, Doug. You had everything you wanted. The notoriety. You had the acumen. You had the exposure. You had everything you wanted and everything you needed, but it still wasn't enough, was it? You wanted, now you were in the game, but now you wanted to be the dealer. Now you wanted it all. Now you were saying to yourself, and I'm sure you were, Doug, because you're a smart guy. And when these people come in and talk to you, you talking to them and sitting in front of them, but the wheels are going on in the back of your mind. And you probably said to yourself, I don't know, but I'm trying to get in your head because you're not here. How could Marcus be so stupid? How could Marcus be so stupid? He had a good woman right here. He's cheating around for 7 years with somebody, and he put his whole empire at risk. Probably said to yourself, if that was me, I wouldn't have done that. That was stupid. I could have done better than Marcus. Right? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Maybe you were a little bit like, I can't get this guy. Why? And so then you still just stayed the course. Bided your time, did nothing, mind your own business. You had no problems with Lisa. There was no accusation of abuse. And then finally the dude dies. And then the light comes on again. And then you show up. And then you show up and you pull out the file and you say everything this woman wants to hear. And you woo her. And you sext her allegedly. And you make her all giggly inside, and you make her feel like a schoolgirl again, and you make her feel excited about love again because you knew what she wanted and you knew what she liked. That's the sin in front of you. It was predatory. It was predatory, Doug. That's the sin that's in front of your face right now, that when you look in that camera, you look horrible. And that's the truth. Sin makes you look horrible. People in the Christian community don't want to talk about sin and sickness and sin and continued sin and death, but it's real and it's scriptural. And I'm concerned for you because you need to get it. You need to understand, my friend, that God is only going to wait for so long for you to deal with this, because it's not just you, Doug. Because of this mess that you and Joni created, just think how many people are turned off from church. Think how many people don't want to go to church now. They just got a bad taste in their mouth about Christian behavior. How hypocritical we are. How messed up we are. Why bother? They're just as worse. Look at this thing on Daystar. How many souls, Doug, did you turn away because of what you're doing? How long do you and Joni think that God's just going to wait and all of a sudden you're going to get an epiphany and stop? If you don't stop, my concern for your soul is that God's going to stop you. And if he stops you in your sin without you repenting, you're going to be in a bad place. And I don't want that, because God loves Doug Weiss, and I've got to love Doug Weiss too. And I'm telling you, Doug, I'm concerned for you as a brother in Christ. I am concerned. And so you got this woman. You say to yourself, I know how to get to this woman. I know what this woman want to hear. And this woman, she's receptive. She's got the power. She's got an iron will. She's not a novice here, and nobody's going to say that Joni was a victim. She wasn't a victim. She had safety around her. You're the kind of guy that you're the buck stops with you. Nobody probably told you you could stop. But Joni had people to tell her she could stop, and she just didn't want to hear it. And she offered you the world. She put Daystar on a silver platter and handed it to you, Doug. Prime time. Number one, right by the boss's side. Heck, you, the boss yourself. She offered you everything you ever wanted, everything you ever dreamt about, everything you ever thought that you could be. You would have been the man. But you had to do one thing. You had to cut Lisa loose. You had to cut that woman loose, Doug. And you did it. Even though she was crying, even though she was begging, even though she went to Denise, even though she was probably crying out to God, please save my marriage, save my husband, send him home. Whatever she could do to stop it, you cut that woman loose. And Doug, you did not look back. You cut her loose. You cut your kids loose. You cut your business loose. You cut your clients loose. You cut your employees loose. You cut the souls loose that believed in you. People that came to Christ because of you. You cut everything loose and you paid the price. You paid the price to sit on Daystar. You paid the price to sit next to her on Joni show. You paid the price, Doug. But look what's happening. You ate the meal, but it's eating up your stomach. You ate the meal, but it's rotting you out from the inside out. Doug, what kind of meal did you eat? You ate sin. And this is the destruction. This is the destruction in your life that you've done, and you've got to pull it together, pal. I'm concerned. I told you this. I'm not joking. I'm not beating up on you. You saw I have not. I'm not calling you any names. I'm not saying anything wrong. I'm trying to understand because I believe there's humanity inside of you, and I believe that you have a conscience because the Bible says you do, and the Bible says your conscience bears witness, and deep down in the dark recesses of your mind, you've got to know, and Joni's got to know whether you guys will ever admit it to anybody else, and maybe you probably won't even dare say it to each other. This was the biggest mistake that both of y'all made. And you know it. And you've got to somehow turn this around. And now you probably think, Doug, the reason why you look so bad and so tired, lethargic, like you're giving up, is because you feel like now you're stuck. You feel like now there's no way back from this. I can't weather this storm. You're not going to weather this storm, Doug. It's not going to go away. I'm concerned for you. You are not going to get away with this. Not in this life or the next if you don't turn this around. God cannot be mocked. And forget about what you've done personally. There are souls that are watching Daystar every day, some of which are flipping off the TV, not giving God a chance because of what you and Joni have done. So God's not going to take that. So I'm going to help you today, Doug. I'm going to help you. And I'm going to tell you what you need to do. I'm going to tell you what you need to do, and I'm going to tell you how to get out of this. And you probably don't believe me, but I'm going to tell you how to get out of this, Doug. It's just a couple of things. It's just a couple of things here, Doug. And I'm going to tell you what you need to do to get yourself out this mess because I'm concerned about you. And I don't want you to be messed up, and I don't want you to do this to yourself, and I don't want you to get yourself in trouble. Okay. So here's the first thing, Doug. Here's the first thing that you need to do. The first thing that you need to do, Doug, is you need to pack your clothes. You need to pack your clothes. You need to get away to God. You need to get away with God. You need to go somewhere, Doug, that nobody knows who Doug is. You need to go to a low-level hotel, not a $100,000 hotel, not a $100,000 resort. Okay, that was a cheap shot. But you know what I'm saying. You need to go to somewhere common. Okay, check yourself in. Maybe get somebody else to check you in. And you need to get in a hotel room, Doug. And you need to stay there. And you need to do business with God. That's what you need to do. You got to do business with God before you ever can get out of this. This is what David had to do. He said, I acknowledge my transgressions. Doug, you're going to have to do some acknowledging. You're going to have to do business with God and not just say, God, I'm sorry. But you're going to have to sit there and acknowledge those transgressions. You're going to have to name them, Doug. You're going to have to sit there and say, I acknowledge I cut Lisa loose. I acknowledge that I'm an adulterer. I acknowledge that I slandered this woman. I acknowledge that I ripped apart my family. I acknowledge that I destroyed my business and my employees. I acknowledge that I didn't treat people right, and I was being deceptive when they came for counseling. I acknowledge it all. I acknowledge that I lied. I acknowledge that I went to Denise. I went to Jimmy Evans. And I acknowledge that I pulled the wool over Jimmy Evans because he thought I couldn't do it. That I pulled the wool over this guy's marriage, XOXO, and I said what he wanted me to hear, and I sold him the bill of goods, and I got away with it because that's how good I am. I take lie detector tests, and I can fool those. I can darn sure fool Jimmy Evans. And you've got to acknowledge that with God. You've got to do business with God, or else you're never going to get out of this. That's your first step. You have to go back to the beginning where David went back and David said, I acknowledge what I've done. I'm a sinner, saved by grace. I'm sorry. Acknowledge what you did. God, I am sorry. I fall on my feet and I fall in front of you and I beg you, God, for mercy. That's what you got to do, Doug. And if you do that, God's going to come in that hotel room. He's going to touch your life and he's going to give you the resolution to do what must come after that. Because that's the first part, to acknowledge it and then the repentance. That means that's the hard part, to turn it around, Doug. You got to turn it around. You're going to come out of that hotel room. And you know what you're going to do, Doug? Let me tell you what you're going to do the minute you come out of that hotel room. You're already going to have a pre-written letter to be hand-delivered to Joni Lamb. And in this letter, you're going to tell the truth. You're going to admit to this woman that you preyed upon her. You're going to admit to this woman that you used her grief as a predatory tool to instill yourself in her weak, grieving heart. You're going to admit to this woman, Doug, that Lisa never did nothing wrong. That you and Joni both were playing the same lustful game. And it was nothing but lust. Lust for her body, lust for her power, lust for her money, lust for her lifestyle, lust for her influence. That's all this was, and you've got to admit it to her. And it's going to hurt her, Doug, but you're going to help her. You're going to help her. You're going to help her heal. And you're going to tell her, Doug, that you realize that you are an adulterer. This is hard. I get it. Trust me, but you're going to get out of this. You're going to tell her that you're an adulterer. And then you're going to tell her that you plan to file for an immediate divorce and you want nothing. You only want what you came into marriage with, and you're going to walk away. You're not taking any claim to anything under the Joni Lamb / Daystar banner. And you're going to wish her well and ask for her forgiveness. And you're going to send somebody there to pick up your clothes, and you're going to not go back, Doug. You're not going back. You're not going to talk to this woman. You're not going to pick up the phone to answer any calls from this woman. You're going to change your phone number and not get text messages from this woman. You're going to go dark. You're going to treat her like you treat Lisa. You're going to go dark. You're going to find the courage, because God's going to give you the courage to do it. And then it's going to get a little harder for you now. Because now you got to go back town and you're going to face Lisa. And you're going to apologize. And you're going to tell her that you apologize for slandering her good name. You're going to tell her you apologize for calling her names and abuse her and all this stuff, saying how she put your feet to sleep and all the other stuff, and that you blessed her and everything else, but she just wasn't good enough and you're sorry. You're going to tell her how good of a wife and a mother she was and a business partner she was, and you're going to tell her you're sorry. You're going to beg this woman for your forgiveness. You're going to tell her that you're in the plans and process of divorcing Joni, that you see yourself as still married to her under God, and whether she takes you back or not, that's how you're going to live the rest of your life, either with her or separated from her, still separated under God. That's what you're going to do. There's no way out of this that you keep Joni. There's no apology that you give God that he's going to bless you and Joni. What you did was unholy. It's an unholy union. He's not just going to wave his hand and say, now it's okay. You took one of God's ordinances, one of his things that he loves the most, that he created in the beginning, marriage, and you made a mockery out of it. Do you really think he's going to say that's okay? You don't get to keep Joni. Either Lisa takes you back or you're going to be by yourself. And you know what? Honestly, and this is probably going to be another jab, that's probably the best thing for you, because you won't be able to inflict pain on anybody else with your blessed or cursed penis, no matter which way you look at it. And you won't be able to, do what you said you didn't do for 10 years with a lie detector stuff to prove it. So you are going to be clean, and you're going to learn what real holiness is like, Doug. That's what you're going to do. So that's number whatever it is. And then after you do that, you're going to meet with your children, and you're going to apologize to those children and tell them how you ripped up their lives, how you brought a stain on their name, how you made them public figures in a mess of your own creation, how they saw their mother hurt, how you hurt the family, how you hurt the business, how you hurt the Weiss name, how you hurt their lives and affected their friendships with other people, all because of what you've done. You owe them an apology, Doug. And you're going to ask for their forgiveness. And let me tell you what else you're going to do then, Doug. You're going to open up your Facebook page. You're going to open up your public media. And you're going to write a letter to me. You're going to write a letter to the world. You're going to write it to the Christian community. And you're going to say how sorry you are for what you've done. You're going to admit what you've done. You're going to say, hey, listen, I lived a life of sin. I've done some things that are bad. I messed up some of my clients. I messed up a wonderful wife that loved me, all because I chased money, all because I chased power, all because I chased position. And I'm sorry. And to the Christian community, I'm sorry for the stain that I put on you, because you guys still had to walk out there every day and hear people talking about the hypocrisy of Christendom because of me. And I'm sorry. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to change. And I'm asking you, the Christian community, for your prayers and for your forgiveness. Doug, it's going to be okay. It's okay, Doug. It's okay. Listen, you think this is not going to be good, don't you? You're probably saying to yourself, there's no way in hell I'm going to do this. Well, that's the problem, Doug. You're already in hell, and you can't do this in hell. You can only do this in grace. You can only do this out of hell by repentance. That's the key. But if you do this, just ponder this with me, Doug. What would happen to Heart if you did this? Can you imagine the marriages that would really want to talk to you now? Because now you're full circle. You've been divorced. You've come to your senses. You made some mistakes. How many men could you stop down this road now because you went down this road? How many marriages can you stop from breaking up because you broke up your own? How many wives can be elevated and validated when you have trashed your own? I really believe that you'll be of more use to marriages and the body of Christ now than you ever would be before. So consider that and think what God can do with you in your latter end. And here's the other thing you're going to do, Doug. And I know this you don't want to do. But you know what? You're going to apologize, and you're going to make a personal call to Jonathan Lamb. You broke this guy's family apart. He was the safeguard. He was the fail-safe of Marcus Lamb. He was the fail-safe switch. And you shut him down. You know, Doug, that you had something to do with that woman turning on that guy like that. You know you had something to do with it. You probably were manipulating her to see that you were so sad that Jonathan wouldn't acknowledge you. You wanted his acknowledgement. You wanted that firstborn son. If I could just break Jonathan's back, the rest of the lambs would fall in line. It was a power grab, Doug. And you won. But at what cost? You owe Jonathan an apology for what you've done, for trying to disrespect that man, for using Jimmy Evans to disrespect that man, for yelling in that man's face like you gonna beat him down or something when you know you couldn't beat up a fly. You were doing all this stuff all because you were trying to overwhelm him with a sense of fear. And you owe him an apology, Doug. You owe Jonathan Lamb an apology, but here's what you owe him more than that. And I'm sure you have some of this. If you have any inside information on Pete, if you have any inside information on the essay of his child, if you have any inside information on Rachel or anyone else that could help him to reinstate himself and get justice for his child, you've got to come clean, Doug. You got to write it down, you got to tell him about it, and you got to make it right. That's what you got to do, Doug. And if you do this, you're going to be okay. But if you don't do this, the sin is going to keep festering. It's going to eat you up, Doug, until one day there's nothing left or something real bad manifests. It's like when Jesus, healed the person and said to him, go and sin no more before something worse happens. Doug, I'm concerned that something worse is going to happen if you don't pull yourself together and do what's right. I know it's hard, but I believe that there's a little God spark of humanity still there that knows right from wrong and knows when he gets up in the morning, dragging himself out of that bed that you soiled and Marcus's house that you took over and coveted, that when you go in that bathroom, Doug, and you look your face in the mirror, you know you're not the same person no more. You know you don't look like the same person anymore, and you know deep down that you have become a wretched man. And who's going to save you? Thanks be to God for Jesus Christ. That's who's going to save you, Doug. That's who's going to get you out this mess. But you better make a decision, and you got to pull it together, Doug. I am rooting for you to do what's right. I'm not here to beat you up. I'm not here to call you names. Hey, listen, there's other people doing that better than me. And listen, let's be honest about it. You earn those names. Every single one that they're calling you, you've done those things, Doug. But that's not how you're going to stop. I'm going to try to reach out and appeal to you with the love of God. I'm going to appeal to you with the saving grace of Jesus Christ that can save a wretch like you and a wretch like me, Doug. And this is not the worst that you've done. It probably you've done other stuff. But you and I both know there's no far as the east is to the west. Doug, you can make this right and God can reinstate you just like that. And you'll look great and sound great and be great. And you'll have a mission and a plan to turn around the rest of your life, Doug, for the kingdom's sake. So I'm counting on you to do it, Doug. Do it now. Don't wait. Don't try to think this out, Doug. Look at yourself in the mirror. Stop getting on TV looking like this. Come on. Turn it around. Take care, Doug. Take care, buddy.